This conference will now be recorded.
So in last class, we have seen about what are the things that we can work on your internal table. That means how can we add the data to your internal table? How can we modify the data? How can we delete the data? How can we sort the data? And how can we read the data? All these things we have seen with the old syntaxes as well as the new syntaxes. Now, how to fill the data, how to get the data from the database, how to get the data from the database. And when we get the data, when we get the data from the database, it will store in the internal table. Always remember that it can store in the internal table or it can store in the work area. If you are getting more than one records, then we will store the data in the internal table. If we get only one single record, then we will store in the work area. We'll store in the work area. So to do this storing of your internal table or work area, so we have select queries. We have select queries. So or the select statements. Select statements. So what are the different select statements that are available in SAP? So the first and the foremost thing is the select star. The select star. So in this select star is nothing but get the entire data from the get the entire table data. So whatever the table we are going to provide, the entire get the entire table fields data. So in this we do have three things: up to n number of rows, and so first one is get the entire data. So sorry, get the entire table data, and then up to n number of rows. How many rows you have specified? For those rows only you will be getting it, and get the required data based on the where conditions. So whatever the conditions you are going to provide, so with those conditions we will be getting the data for all. We will be getting all the table fields data. Now the next one is select required fields. So now I want I want the I want only the specific fields from the table. I want to get the specific fields from the table. So in this also, if you want to get the entire data of that specific fields, or up to n number of rows, or based on the required conditions. So this is the major one we will be using in real time. This is the major one we will use in real time. We'll be using in the real time. The third one is select single versus select up to n rows. Select single versus select up to one row, not n rows, one row. So what when to use select single and when to use select up to one row. And the next one is select get the data from the from multiple tables. So if you want to get the required fields data from multiple tables, so it can be get the entire data or up to n number of rows data or get the required data based on your conditions. It can be anything. So here in this we will be having two things. One is the joins and one is the for all entries. One is the joins and one is the for all entries. So once we completed this one, so we will be entire, if I can say you that the entire syntaxes are done, the major almost 90% of SAP syntaxes are done. SAP syntaxes are done. Okay, so in ECC majorly we will, if you are working on ECC system, we will, if you are working on ECC systems, we will use this syntax majorly. So completely we will be depending on your for all entries if you want to get the data from multiple tables. But if you are working on ECC, it's hot. S4 HANA, we will always write this statement. We'll always use this statement. We will never ever use this here for all entries. So if it is in ECC, you have to always go ahead with your for all entries. But if it is an S4, you have to always go ahead with your joins, because these joins will be working on your database. The joins will work under your database, whereas the for all entries will be work under your application server. I told you, you will be having the presentation server, the application server, and your database server. So the joins will always work on your database server, whereas the for all entries will always work on your application layer or application server. So remember that. So in ECC, the application area memory is very high, whereas in HANA, the database memory is too high. So that's the reason we can able to work with joins directly in your HANA. So now let me start it with my first query, which is nothing but here select star. Select star. So this statement is used to get all the fields, all the fields, all the fields data, all the fields data for a particular table, for a particular table. For a particular table, if I want to get all the fields data, then I'm going to use this one. The syntax, what is the syntax? So syntax is select star from the database table, whatever the database table you will be having, DB table, into table. You have to always write into table what is your internal table. That's it. If I want to get all the fields and entire data, this is for all the fields and entire data, then we are going to use this one. But in real time, we will never ever use this syntax. This is for sure. So this will never ever, we will never ever use this syntax. Now let's see the example program. Let me log on to my SAP system. So now I'm going to SE38. I'm going to say ZR7 AM select star. So now I'll just say click on create example program. on select star. So I'm going to take this as executable program. I'm going to click on save this one. I'm going to save that in our package as well as in our TR, whatever the TR we have. Now, as I want to get the entire fields, do I need to create a data declarations? Do I need to create a do I need to create a types declaration? As I want my entire fields, do I need to create my types declaration?
Yes, you will need, right? You need to match the columns.
No, we don't need to create a types declaration. So remember, types declarations are only be used for the specific fields I told you. So if I want to get a specific fields from the table, so then we are going to create a types declaration. So in my case, I want to get all my fields of my table. Then we don't need to create your types declaration. Directly we will be
Okay.
going ahead with your data declarations. Data declarations. So I'm going to take data gt underscore Mara type standard table of Mara. Type standard table of Mara. So my requirement is I my requirement get the entire entire table data of Mara. Get the entire table data of Mara. So in that case, we don't need to have your types declaration. You can directly go with your data declarations. Now, the main logic. So we need to, so previously what we used to do, we used to append it with the help of your native SQL syntaxes with our values. But it's the time to get the values from your database. So for that, we need to write your select statement. Select star from Mara into table. So what is my table? GT underscore Mara. That's it. Do your pretty printer and let's get activate my code. Let's activate my code. So now once you got the data, so how can you know whether you have received the data in my internal table or not? What is the system variable? What is the system variable?
Hyderabad.
Yes, size sub rc. If size sub rc is not, if size sub rc is equal to 0, we will be writing sort gt underscore Mara by the key fields. Will always do it on by your key fields, and then delete adjacent duplicates from gt underscore Mara comparing MATNR. If you have any duplicates, let's say for example, as this is a dummy system, they can be having a duplicates. So that's the reason I'm just maintaining this delete adjacent duplicates. Okay, so once we received this, so now it's time for me to display the data. It's time for me to display the data. How can you display this? Loop at gt underscore Mara into data of gs underscore Mara, and then you can just say write whatever the fields you want. Let's say, because if I go to my Mara table, you will be close to having 230 fields. You will be close to having 230, 263 fields. So if you want, you can just get all the fields, but right now I'm only displaying the few fields. So I'm going to say gs underscore Mara hyphen MATNR, comma, gs underscore Mara hyphen MTART. Let's say for example, gs underscore Mara hyphen MATKL, and then gs underscore Mara hyphen MBRSH, and then gs underscore Mara hyphen ERSDA, and then gs underscore Mara hyphen ERNAM. That's it. Now do your pretty printer, and now let's get activate the code. That's it. Now let me keep a breakpoint over here. Let me click on execute. Now if I go to my Mara, see here we don't have any table. We don't have any records. Now if I say F5, see how many records are there? 552. So how you are going to tally that? So now go to your SE11 table, go to your SE16 and let's say click on Mara and then click on number of entries. How many entries are there? 552 entries are there. See, the same 552 entries has been came up. Now I'm just going to sort those. Delete adjacent. We don't have any duplicates. That's the reason its size bar is equal to 4. And then I'm just going to loop that. I'm going to display that. I'm going to display that in my output. Now, how can you work with how to create this internal table automatically? So, which is nothing but your inline declaration. So, we don't need to have this data declaration. So, you can directly write it on your select statement. How can you write that? So, if you want to write that at the rate data of, only during the select statement you have to use at the rate. Only during the select statement you have to use at the rate, and remaining everywhere you will be using data of. You will be using. So but when you are getting the data from the database, you have to use at the rate. So now when I say pretty printer and when I activate this, you will be having no issues. Now this GT Mara will be created automatically when the system is executing this query. When the system is executing this query, you don't need to declare your data declarations. So you don't need to create your data declarations. This is how you will be writing your inline declarations for a table when you want to get the data from a table. Now, let's say for example, so this is my first one. So get the entire table data. Now my requirement, my next thing is select star up to n rows, up to n rows. So I want to get the entire fields data for the rows I specified. I want the entire, I want to get, I want to get the entire fields data, entire fields data for the rows which which I specified, which I specified. So now what is the syntax for that? The syntax is, so this is the same syntax, no difference in the syntax at all. So after this, you will be saying up to the rows which we specified, n rows, up to n rows. That's it. Up to the n rows which you specified. Now what I'm going to do that, so I'll just say up to, sorry, up to, let's say 150 rows. 150 rows. That's it. So then you will be getting only the data for up to 150. So SAP will consider the data from the row 1 to, so it will consider the data from first row to 150 row. So this is my first row, second row, third row, fourth row, like this till 150 rows. Whatever the data you have, you will be getting those. It will be getting those details and it will be showcasing that in your output. Now do your pretty printer and let's get activate the code. So now when I click on execute F5, so now if you see here, previously it's 552, right now it is 150 records only. So now it's the same thing. So I'm just going to display that F8. So you will be getting those details in your output. You'll be getting those details in your output. So this is how you have to check. You have to write down with up to 150, sorry, up to how many number of rows you want. Now let's take an assignment. Now assignment 15. Assignment 15. So now get the data. So I need a parameter in my selection screen. I need a parameter in my selection screen, which has to specify how many rows, it we need to enter, how many rows of data, we have to get from the table, from the table. Let's take VBAK. Let's take VBAK. So from the table VBAK, how many number of rows we need to get it. So now, so what are the, so the display part. So you have to get all the fields table, but while you are displaying the data, so I want VBELN, ERDAT has to be shown in this format. It can be shown in any format in your output based upon your user profile settings. So right now my user profile settings says 0905-2014. If I go to system and in the user profile, if I click on my own data, so it's, if I go to my defaults, it is dd.mm.yyyy. So this is the user profile data which has been stored. This is the user profile data which has been stored, but I don't want that one. I want that in yyyy slash dd slash concatenate. So concat. So this is the format. Concat ERDAT at the rate ERNAM, and then concat I want VKORG at the rate VTWEG pipe symbol SPART. So this is how the concatenate has to be shown in your output. Next, ERNAM, ERDAT, VKORG, VTWEG, SPART. So let me go to my VBAK table. VBAK table. Let me see. Yeah. Okay. Next, AUDAT. AUDAT has to be shown in MM hyphen DD hyphen YYYY. So this is the format I want to show that in my output. So you have to display that in this format, and then VBTYP and VBTYP underscore your description. So we don't have this field, but I want that field. And then AUART and AUART underscore the description. This is what. Now coming to this VBTYP underscore description. So let me go to my table output. So /n SE16N. I don't want all the fields to be shown in my output. I want, so you can just select this. You can remove this and you can just select this over here. Then VBTYP and AUART. So these are the things. Let me click on execute. We do have everything as C. Okay. Okay, fine. That's okay. Let me click on F4. Okay. VBTYP. If VBTYP is equal to A, then I want this as quotation. quotation. If it is equal to A, then I want to take this as quotation. And if VBTYP is equal to B, then it is enquiry. Sorry. If VBTYP is equal to A, it is enquiry. Then quotation. And if VBTYP is equal to C, then order. Order. Else you need to print it as others. You need to print it as others. So next, coming to AUART description. Next, AUART underscore your description. So if AUART is equal to OR, then it's this. One second. This is normal sales order, I guess. Regular order, OR. Oh, standard order. Standard order. Standard order. Standard order. Else others. You have to print this one. So do this assignment. Do this assignment using the old syntax, and the new syntax. The new syntaxes. You have to do this assignment with the old syntaxes as well as your new syntaxes. And to print the date, note, to print the date in the required specific format, we need to use a concept called as offset. We need to use a concept called as offset. So you have to know this, what is meant by this offset concept. I'm not going to tell you about this. You have to understand. You have to go ahead and find out in Google what is an offset in SAP ABAP, how to use that offset in SAP ABAP, and then you have to write down this one. You have to write down this one. Okay, we'll see who will going to write down. So there is a question. So when we set the user profile data, it will be applied for this date fields. How can we set? Yeah, that's what I told you, that you have to use your offset concept. So you have to see that what is this offset concept, and you have to get those data. Okay, so this is what your assignment 15. Okay, so now let's go back to your program. So now what I need to do, so now the next statement is I want to get, where is this? Where is my Word document? Yeah, here. So now what is the next thing? Get the required, get all the fields data based on your required condition. Based on, get all the fields data based on the conditions. So if you are providing the conditions, for that conditions, I want to get that all the fields data. So if you want to do that, we have to use a concept called as select star with where conditions. I'll just say like this, conditions. So get the entire table data based on the conditions. So here you have providing up to n rows. Now, if the condition has satisfied, so that record has to be fetched by the database. That record has to be fetched by your database. So how can you do that? So get all the data for the conditions which we provided. how to provide your conditions. So to provide the conditions in a select query, to provide the conditions in a select query, we need to use where clause. We need to use a where clause. We need to use a where clause. So this where clause will identify, so what are your conditions, and so if those conditions, whether it is an equal to or not equal to or greater than, less than, so however you're passing, so based on that it will go ahead and get the data from your database. Now what is that? Now I'm going to say the statement, the syntax. So select star from the db table, from the db table into table, internal table. So if you want to get only to the specific rows based on your conditions, you can also write down that. So here I want getting all the records, but if I want specific conditions, so up to n rows, up to n rows, where you will can write. So if you want the entire data, then you don't need to write down this. If you want only the specific number of rows, you have to write down your specific number of rows. So where field 1 is equal to value 1 and or. So you can write both and or. So if it is an and, it's simply like your projection view. So you are creating a projection view. So in the projection view, so whatever the required fields you are going to get. So sorry, it's not a projection view. Here you are getting the entire table data. If it is a specific fields, then it is called as your projection view. So projection view, and based upon your field conditions, you are going to get your data. So field 2 is equal to value 2 and field 3 is equal to value 3. Like that, you can write how many conditions you want. Value 3. How many conditions you want, you can just go ahead and write those many number of conditions. Now I'm just go ahead and say a new statement, select star with where conditions, where conditions. So I'm just going and clicking on create. So I'm going to say example program, example program, example program for select star you using where conditions. Conditions. I'm going to take this as executable program. Let's click on save. I'm going to save that in my package as well as in my TR. Now, what is the thing? So I'm not going to write anything. So I'm going to directly going with my main logic. So before that, what is the requirement? Requirement. My requirement is to get the entire fields data, from Mara table, where the material type, that is which is nothing but MTART is equal to ROH, where my material type is equal to ROH. Now what I need to write? So select star from table, from the database table, from Mara into table at the rate data of GT underscore Mara, where what is my field? MTART. MTART is equal to ROH. That's it. So now what is the next thing? If size of bar is equal to 0, size of bar is equal to 0, sort. So now I'm going to work this sort over here. So in order to work, in order to do the sort, you will be writing order by on which field you want to sort. I need to sort on my MAT NR. So you don't need to write the sort statement again. So we are going to write by using an order by clause. So order by is mainly used to sort your internal table. That's it. Now if size of bars is equal to 0, or you can just say select distinct star also. So you don't need to write your delete adjacent duplicates also. So you don't need to write your delete adjacent duplicates. Now, if I say do a pretty printer, let me check this. No issues at all. If you are writing distinct, you will be getting the unique values based upon your sorting conditions. Based upon your sorting conditions, so you will be getting your distinct values. So you don't need to write your the order by, so you don't need to write your sorting condition, or you don't need to write your delete adjacent duplicates. Delete adjacent duplicates. So remember that. Now I'll just say display the data. See how we are reducing the code. Display the data. So the same thing, loop at gt underscore mara into data of gs underscore mara, and then we will be writing this as gs underscore mara hyphen. So I'm just sorry, I forgot that. Right, gs underscore mara hyphen matnr. I'm just going to get only this field, and then I'll also write gs underscore mara hyphen mtart. gs underscore mara hyphen mtart. Do your pretty printer, and let's get activate the code, and let me click on execute. See here, only the ROH materials you can able to see that in your output. You can able to see that in your output, the only the ROH materials. Okay, so now if I want to get up to, let's say for example, up to 100 rows or 10 rows, so you will get only the first 10 rows which matches the ROH conditions. The first 10 rows which it matches the ROH conditions will be gets displayed in your output. Let's say for example, so right now we have been hard coded this ROH value, ROH value. Now my user is saying, now my requirement is user's requirement. User is saying, I want this, I want the material type to be passed by myself. I want the material type to be passed by myself. That means user will pass some material type. Based upon that, you have to get the list, you have to get you have to get the details, and you have to display that in your output. So if the user wants to pass it, then we need to create a selection screen, which is with the help of your parameters as well as your select options. So I'm going to now design the selection screen. Selection screen. One second, guys. So I'm going to say parameters p underscore the material type mtart type mtart. I have already told you about these parameters. So now do your pretty printer, and let's get activate the code. So how can you pass this? If you want to pass this, just replace this with the p underscore mtart. As you are using the new syntaxes, here also you have to pass this hosting variable. So this at the rate we will be calling this as the hosting variable. So if you are going ahead with the old syntaxes, you don't need to pass that at the rate. But as you are using the new syntax, you have to pass this at the rate the hosting variable. Now do your pretty printer, and let's get activate the code. And now let me click on execute. It will show you a selection screen. If I say HALB, and if I click on execute, see here, the first 10 records which is satisfying the HALB has shown in your output. So this is this is how you can use your select star with where condition. Select star with where condition. I can go with the new syntaxes, guys, but you have to practice every assignment with the new syntax as well as your old syntaxes. The new syntaxes as well as your old syntaxes. Why I was saying that, if you have changed your organization, so you might be seeing a programs, or in even in S4 the standard programs. So some of the standard programs has just been migrated in the same way. They have not changed that, and SAP is using the old syntaxes over there. So now you need to habituated with that old syntaxes too. You have to get habituated with that old syntaxes too. So that's the reason I'm asking you to practice with the old syntax as well as your new syntax. Now let's take one more assignment. Assignment 16. So get the follow get I need two parameters. I need two parameters in the selection screen. In the selection screen, I need two parameters in my selection screen. So the first parameter will identify the first. I need the following. I'll just go ahead with this, not like this. I need the following parameters. Okay, I need two parameters only. I'll just go with this only. Two parameters in the selection screen. The first parameter is the first parameter BUKRS, which is nothing but your company code. Company code. So I want this field has as a mandatory. That means for sure the user has to pass. For sure, that means for sure the user has to pass has to pass the value. Has to pass the value. How can you do that? How can you make a parameter as mandatory? I told you this. What is the keyword? What is the keyword to make the parameter as a mandatory? What is the keyword? It's obligatory. So if I go here to my code, let's take this as obligatory, and then I'll just go ahead and I'll show you. I need to show you the difference. So that's the reason I'm going to create one more thing. MATNR type MATNR. So now I'll just say click on activate. Now if I click on execute, see here you are not seeing any tick mark, but when you see this obligatory, you will be seeing a tick mark, which is nothing but your mandatory. Which is nothing but your mandatory for sure. So that means if I say execute, it will throw you an error. So fill up all the required entry fields. So you have to fill the entry fields for sure. You have to fill the entry fields. Okay. I have to pass the values. And the next one is the second parameter is number of rows I want. Number of rows to be displayed in the output. To be displayed in the output. In the output. So now, so if the number of rows is not specified, if the number of rows is not specified, then we need to consider the first 100 rows. We need to consider the first 50 rows. If it has been provided, then you have to consider this one. If it is not provided, then you have to consider the 50 rows. So this is the first thing. Now get the fields, from the table EKKO. Get the fields from the table EKKO. So get all the fields from the table EKKO, but output I want these specific fields. So what is that? EBELN. The next one is so now I'm going to SE11 EKKO table. I just say click on display. BUKRS and comma BUKRS comma BUKRS underscore description, which is not available. So which is not available, and then BSTYP and BSTYP underscore your description, and then BSART and then BSART underscore your description, and then Liftnar, and then so concat EKORG. So you have to pass that manually. You have to pass that. So while you are writing the statement, write. So you will say EBELN and then BUKRS, and then so let's say for example EBELN is equal to 1 and then BUKRS is equal to 1000 and BUKRS description. What is the description? Let's take for example India. So you have to print this description over here. You have to print this description. So how can you do that? Go ahead and create a variable of description and pass and get the description based upon your conditions and pass the description over here. That's it. Pass a description over here. EKORG at the rate. So okay, I'll say hashtag. So EKGRP. So that's it. So this is how you have to do it. So for this you need to create a variable, and for this also you need to create a variable. So based upon your conditions, you have to fill this variable, and the same variable you have to write down in your write statement. You have to write down in your write statement. That is what you have to do it. Now conditions. So BUKRS underscore the description. Let me go to the table and then let me go to /o SC16N EKKO. So now let me click on execute. Let me see what are the list of company codes I have. So 1000, 1000, 1000, 1000. Only 1000 I have. So data 800. Okay. If BUKRS is equal to 1000, then I need to print India, then India. If BUKRS is equal to 2300, then it is USA, else others. You have to say this as else others. Next, BSTYP underscore your description. BSTYP. Okay. If BSTYP is equal to A, then it is request for quotation or request for quotation RFQ. You have to print this, comma. If BSTYP is equal to F, then it's PO, else it's others. Else it's others. Do this with your old syntax. old syntax, and new syntaxes, new syntaxes, using the conditional operator and the switch operator, the conditional operator and your switch operator. So you have to use the conditional operator. So one field you go ahead and use your conditional operator. For one field you go ahead and use your switch operator, so that you will be having both, you will be knowing both the operators. So I want to make those new conditions more practice. So that's the reason I'm giving this type of your requirements. And concatenations also do that with your new syntax style, new syntax as well as your old syntaxes. So how can you do that? It's your responsibility. It's your responsibility. Okay. So that's it. So that's the end of today's session. I can continue with that, but I don't want to continue. I'll be taking this select the required fields. I'll be taking that in your tomorrow's session. As so that's it. That's the end of today's session. Before I signing off, any other questions?
When you
This
query select star
conference
from
will
table
now
name,
be
right?
recorded.
How SAP will display the data? Is there any like by default like a row ID or something?
Yeah, it will see in SAP how the fetching of data will happen will be based upon in your ECC system. In HANA, it's a different way. The fetching of data in ECC, when you're writing the query, it will fetch, it will check the data row by row, row by row. So the first row it will check it, the second row it will check it. Now if your conditions is ROH which has met, so it will pass this data to your internal table, it will append the data. Now it will go to the second row. If it is ROH it will append it. So if it is FERT which is not equal to ROH, this will get skipped, and next like this it will go ahead. So record by record, row by row it will get checked this, row by row. ECC, it will always be row by row, whereas in S4, it's a columnar database. So based upon your columns, it will go ahead and check the data. It will fetch the data. That's a different way of fetching the data that we will be seeing when we started with your S4. Okay. So clear, Pawan?
Yeah. So when you like for example, two records got inserted in the table. Okay, in the Mara table. First record is inserted yesterday. Second record is inserted in today. So when I query select star from table name, right? Which record it will come by default? The yesterday's record.
No, no, no. So what, see, if you have 500 records right now, so in tomorrow it can be 1000. So based upon your condition, how many records it satisfy, it will come. See, let's say for example, I want to get the sales orders for the last 1 month. So or else I have to get the records for that particular date range. So the date range I have provided only today's date. You will be getting only today's date sales order. So let's say I want to get today's date and yesterday's date, yesterday's date. So you will be getting the sales order for today's date as well as your yesterday's date. So it's the same way how you are seeing the banking statement. So account banking statement. So you will be providing a date range, particular date range. By default, it will be showing you the last 10 transactions only. But if you want to go ahead with the entire statement, you will be providing your date range. In that particular date range, whatever the transactions you are doing, it will be just showing you up. So now in the same way, based upon whatever the conditions you are doing up. So let's say you have executed today morning the statement and you have done some transaction till today evening, and if you're taking a new statement at the today evening, so today's transactions will also come and show up in the output, right? That's the same way, that's the same behavior over here too. So how many transactions that you have done until to that particular day, it will just show that in the output. If you have not done anything, it will not show you anything in your output. If you have done anything, it will show you that in your output. That's it. Clear?
Yeah, it's clear. One more thing, like for example, in ASCII format, each character, each letter, it is storing as a one byte, right?
Or
In
yeah.
SAP. So how about like
uh,
other than English letters, like
See that
let's say
we
Japanese?
don't needed the ASCII characters or binary formats over here. So that will be taken care internally by SAP. You don't need to worry about that.
Okay.
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 Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, I'll be considering it as no questions. I'm just stopping the